Oops, sorry, there you are. Hello and welcome to another Emacs Hangout. Today is October 14, 2015, and the Emacs Hangout is basically kind of like a virtual meetup where we can informally just get together and talk about anything related to Emacs, which is basically anything. There's no real set agenda for these things, although people, often like sharing interesting bits of their config or cool packages they've come across or other things like that. And that's also a good place to, I guess, ask questions, show off something cool you learned, and find out about even better ways to do things. So that's Emacs Hangout, and welcome. Let's kick it off with a short introduction. I'm Sasha Chua. I'm based in Toronto. I really like using Emacs for org mode, especially using it for all sorts of things in addition to programming, like cooking and sewing and whatever. And I'm hosting today's Hangout, clearly. So let's move on to Kieran. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kiran. I'm based out of Chennai in India. Um, I've been using Emacs for about over a year right now, and I mostly do Python programming on Emacs. And I think, yeah, another thing I've been really using it for is I've migrated all my Evernote notes over to org mode, and using Box to
Hmm.
sync everything.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's about it.
that sounds really cool, and I'll probably ask you about your Evernote setup later. But let's move on to George first for a quick introduction.
Hello. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Very good. So George Jones, in the DC area these days. Been using Emacs for a long time. Org mode for a little while. My current sort of project is to move my entire life sort of into Git. And to that end, of course, I've been using Magit and been writing a few scripts lately, and I'll talk about those if people are interested. I do a lot of Tramp SSH stuff. And so I've also written a small little helper function for that.
I started checking out that wonderfully organized blog post you linked to, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing about those snippets. I see we have a couple of viewers listening in on the live stream. If you'd like to submit questions, you can submit them through the Q&A app that should show up, and I'll check that occasionally and I guess read out the questions to see if anyone can answer them. Alternatively, you can check out the event page to find the join link and then join the conversation yourself. So, so George, you actually have quite a fair bit of cool stuff to share with us, from identifying things that you haven't moved into Git yet to moving everything into Babel as well and all sorts of stuff. Do you want to go ahead and walk us through some of the cool snippets that you've put together? You can
Well,
share your screen by clicking on the green monitor icon on the left side if you hover over that one.
yeah,
And then if you want, you can share just your browser window or whatever you like.
yeah, got it. What I'll probably try and do is go into the sort of the Git utilities that I wrote, the Babel Git utilities, just sort of demonstrate them live. That would probably be better than looking at them. So let's try this.
Totally
Uh,
cool.
let's go there. Do we see my Emacs screen?
Yes, and it's very readable. Awesome.
Okay, very nice. Okay. So I usually skip the description because I know what I'm doing. Um, let's see, we'll do the org Babel thing. All right. So the problem that I had here, right, was that, for the past 6 months I've sort of made the motto that, unless it's in Git, it doesn't exist. But what I've done, right, is I've got some things in GitHub, I've got some things in, bare repos on a shared hosting thing, right? I've recently started putting some things into the AWS code commit, right? So I had things all over the place, and there wasn't really a strategy for them. And so the question of, where are things checked in, and what's the status of the check-in and all that. Right. I just didn't have a handle on that, and so over the weekend I wrote this little org Babel thing, um, and as of this morning I have both my personal and my work stuff more or less a handle on it, so that if my machines die, I'm okay. Um, all right. So let's see. Let's just do this. Um, right. So let's just do this. Right, let's do the configuration. So I've given the description of it, so we can just skip the configuration. So really, the only thing you need to do is say, where is you set the base dir to be where is the where do you want to look, right? If you want to do everything in your home directory, right, you just make that your home directory. One of the things I've discovered is that it looks like Babel takes the first name block lexically, whether it's inside an example or not. The first one seems to win. It's a little silly, but that's so if I want to do the other one, I move it up. But yeah, so there's 4 parameters to this thing. Where's your base dir? What's recent? Actually, I don't use that later. Max lines and ignore dirs. Okay, but mostly it's just base dir. So let's go down and see what the actions in this guy are. So I want to list the repos that I've got starting from base dir, right? And so really all this is a bunch of shell scripts. A lot of what I do these days is actually just sort of shell scripts, inside Babel blocks. And so what this will do, right, is I'll run it. And, I'll have to run it. It may not be interesting. Yeah. So okay, that block is recommitted, but we'll just rerun that. So yeah, get rid of that, and it should run. Real binding. Oh well. So anyway, there's the directories that it should have listed those guys out, right? The next thing we do here is the current remotes. Yeah, for each. So where are all the repos? Well, let's see if this guy's going to be happy. Okay, so we're going to have to go static here because it's not running. All right, so anyway, then what this guy would do is basically list out the repos that I've got, right? Tell me where the origins and stuff of them stuff are. It's much more cooler when it runs, but oh well.
Demos, of course. I want to call attention to the technique that you did of specifying your variables up at the top of your Babel file and making that very easy to pull into all the different blocks that you have there. I actually haven't used that for any of my Babel files, but it's a great technique.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, right? I mean, I'm using also the array. So if if this guy were to be running properly, and because it's a demo, it's not. Right? Yeah, I basically just list these guys out, and then this get dirs thing becomes the input to the next step, right? And so for people who haven't done that, right, then you specify that. Here I'm passing the previous block in there. The other thing again, I'm just been sort of getting into Babel a bit. The other thing I discovered in this round is this results verbatim drawer thing where you can actually pump out a table. So where is it? Right, you can put the raw table format out, and then create tables with headers and things like that. So anyway, list the things that need to get pushed to the repos, right? So yeah, so where's this guy go? The things that need to get pushed are there, right? So what this does is does a git fetch, right, to pull down the latest stuff into the local copy, then checks the hashes, right, and then based on the hashes, then we know whether we need to push or pull, which is actually distinct from whether or not you need to commit or not. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is more Git than it is Emacs, but that's what I've been doing. It's inside Emacs.
That's interesting. Have you considered, like, in addition to having the status displayed in the table, using a link or something like that to allow you to easily push or commit right from the table row?
Yeah. I mean, that was something I was actually working on this morning. We're thinking about this morning. Yeah. So let's see if I actually had a comment there up in the source code. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
But it would be ls file. Yeah, this. Right. It would be the ls files modified. commit, sync, push, right? So that would be the next thing. I just didn't quite get there this morning. So that's it. So that's my Babel stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, so that's nothing to walk through, but I'm finding it useful.
I like this idea of using Babel to create a dashboard for yourself, especially when it comes to monitoring the status of so many different projects or directories or subtasks or whatever. So I think this is a fascinating use of it, and I'm glad you shared it.
Yep, yep. One of the things, one of the things I didn't quite get to is there's some. I have to put these true things on the end in the shell if you exit getting the air status out of Babel when you're running shell. See, is a bit of a trick, and that's for a future Emacs or a post or something. I might do some use cases because the air handling is hard in shell.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's it.
Cool. So Puneeth just joined. Puneeth, do you want to give a quick introduction, and then we can see if anyone has questions?
Hi, I'm Puneet. I use Emacs, and I haven't done anything since the last Emacs, like anything to show
That's
since the last
okay.
Emacs Hangout that I can do. Yeah.
That's cool. I did actually. I had the same problem last time I did an Emacs chat, the Emacs Hangout. I was like, I feel so embarrassed because I haven't done anything since the last month. But I did actually do something this month. So this month I managed to split up the Emacs conference videos into
Oh,
individual talks, and now they're on YouTube, so people can listen to them or download them and convert them into their favorite free software format and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's there. That also used org. But I can actually share the little bit of code. Let me go set things up while people talk about the cool things that George shared.
yeah, sure.
Let me
Yeah,
crack it.
while you're setting that up, I'll just say that I did watch a couple of Emacs conference videos. One of them was you referenced the auto commit module, which I've been trying for the past few days, and it's maddening, right? Because like every time you save, like you have to think up a commit message, and you don't have to. You can figure it not, but it's just maddening. And I went back and looked actually at the commit log in the repo for Git auto commit itself, right? And it looks like he's doing larger style semantic commits, right? Than these. Oh my gosh, I'm going to save my buffer every 3 minutes in auto commit. Um, so it looks to me like the maintainer auto commit was not using it when he was writing auto commit, and that's just another case of recursive tools and that stuff.
But that could be some creative rewriting of history there too, because you can squash commits and then you can pretend that that was what really what you were trying to do from the beginning, and you knew exactly what you needed to do from the very start.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm giving up on it, but it's like every 5 seconds, I have Control X, Control S or whatever in my fingers from 30 years ago, and it doesn't stop, and so I'm saving all the time, yeah, I mean, you just can't do commit messages that way.
Awesome. So I have this in I think people can see my screen now. I had this in an org block because I was writing a blog post about it. But if I pull this out a little bit, and then you can see how this stuff works. Actually, I should just remove this, unquote that. Okay, so the way that I use the tables here is I was listening to the videos. There are a lot of videos. I was listening to the stream that I downloaded from Twitch TV, which we initially used to record it, and then I fed it into I kept track of the start and end very roughly, like starting at for example 1 hour 28 minutes in 20 seconds, so forth. Howard Abrams does his literate DevOps talk where he talks about using org Babel to start shells and run commands in various computers and all sorts of other goodness. And then I kept track of the end time. And the reason I needed to do that was because FFmpeg, which is a program that I was using to actually cut the thing into smaller pieces, I didn't have the version that allowed you to specify the end time. I had the version that allowed you to specify the duration. So you would specify the start time and the duration, and then magic would happen, and you would come out with this file. Since I don't like doing that kind of time math in my head, I just use this handy dandy table formula, which says the fourth column, which is the duration, is equal to the third column, the end time, minus the second column. And the semicolon T says treat it as times. So for example, if this was in here, Control C on that table formula, assuming of course that things are there you are. We'll recalculate it and say that segment is 3 minutes and 19 seconds long. So after that, it was fairly straightforward to say, okay, take my, have an Emacs list block where I take the data in from the table. So like George was showing you, you can name the tables using the plus name keyword over here, and then you can then put that into a variable. And then I said, my table's got column names, so ignore those. And then show and give me the results, just plain and without fiddling around with too much quoting and whatever. And all it did was go through that table and plug that information in with the file name and the start time and the duration into this this format string. So the result of that was something like this. It gives me FFmpeg lines that all I have to do is copy and paste them into my shell. Probably I could just run it if I were on a system that was slightly more friendly than Windows. But in my case, I just copied and pasted into eShell, which allowed me to tweak it a little bit also, just in case I needed to. So that's the basic idea of using org tables to do cool stuff, and then taking that information and processing it some more. In my case, I was using Emacs Lisp, but in other people's cases, it might be getting the data into Python or shell scripts or whatever else you have. So, org mode. We always end up talking about org mode at these things, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was how I survived the tedium of fiddling around with lots of timestamps, and of course adjusting the timestamps after I played the video and realized, oh, I accidentally cut off someone too early or whatever else. And all of those are now somewhere on the Emacs Conferences and Hangouts YouTube channel.
Thanks for doing that. I'll take a look at some of them, I guess.
Cool. Awesome. Does anyone else have interesting things to share about Emacs, cool things you've been learning, things that you're getting stuck on and want to figure out?
I started using projectile recently,
Oh, yeah?
and I really like it. Especially I have, so I started writing Lua code pretty recently, and I find it like a little weird than like our code base. Like I'm not used to our code base, and also Lua.
Yeah.
So I find having like tags. So projectile has this regenerate tags, like whenever you're idle or whatever, it can regenerate your tags. So I started using projectile and tags, and it's really nice.
Is that something you can quickly demo to us without showing anything sensitive?
Let me see if I can set it up. Give me a few minutes.
Sure. It is really helpful to have all these quick ways to jump around and view files, and especially with tags, you can jump to the definitions of things, not just the file where you think it is. So that'd be nice to see a setup of. Kieran, you've been working with Python, right? Is that something you've set up as well? Do you use projectile or a different way to navigate through files?
So I use elpie, and they pretty much have a good workflow setup for almost most of the use cases. So they have even pulled in different libraries, say like import magic. So if you're using some module, you don't need to specifically go import. You can just point at that particular location, and then it will autocomplete for you. It will autocomplete the import for you. So and you can run tests. And if I'm not really sure, but I think the next version of elpie would have projectile support inbuilt. So when you get into a project, it will automatically get the environment and set up everything for you. So it's a pretty awesome package.
That should be neat. I've been playing around with more Python lately because, as it turns out, so I'm interested in sewing as well, I might have mentioned, and somebody's written some Python scripts to generate sewing patterns based on measurements. So my Emacs setup for Python is very, very rudimentary at the moment, but I'm looking forward to exploring elpie and other packages.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to combine Emacs and hiking on the Appalachian Trail, which is my other sort of hobby these days. I haven't figured that one out yet.
Well, you can always keep track of where, like in your planning and how far you're.
Well, yeah. Org table, the tables. Yeah, I think the tables are a very definite possibility for that. But I haven't
Yeah.
quite married those two yet.
Yeah. Puneet, I guess that means you're ready to show stuff?
Yeah. So on the left, you can see my Emacs configuration.
Could you change your font font size to be a little bit bigger?
Yeah, is that better?
Awesome, thanks.
Okay, so on the left is my Emacs configuration, specifically the part where I added projectile tags. So essentially, I have an idle timer, uh, and so enable the idle timer, and projectile automatically hooks up regenerate projectile dash regenerate dash tags to run on the idle timer. And I set a timeout of 300 seconds. And each time the tag file updates, if the tag file is already open, Emacs tend to ask you if there are changes, whether it should update the tags file or not. So I just set revert to without query so that it doesn't bother me. And yeah, so it has two different kinds of queries. So for both of them, I don't want any like prompts. So I just set these variables to true.
Hmm.
And on the left is like a simple function where I'm calling image.scale, and I have no idea where that function is. I just hit meta dot or meta full stop, and it takes me to where the function is defined. And I can hit meta comma to go back to where I hit meta dot.
That's really cool. I like the use of the idle timer there. I hadn't realized, but of course that's a configurable variable, because that means you don't have to think about refreshing your tags table all the time. It just happens.
Exactly. That's pretty nice. Like I find it much easier to navigate this new code base now as compared to when I didn't have the tags. So I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing the vertical split on the window there without the border in the middle? Or
Oh, I just removed all the border frames. Uh, Let me find that. Yeah, I think it's the fringes which I removed. I'm not really sure.
oh, it's just a complete setting and everything. Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I think this is the part which does the removing of the fringes on the border.
That's a nice thing about these hangouts, right? You can see someone else go with their setup, and you're like, "What is this thing that you're taking for granted and not even explaining to us?" And you can ask about it. Cool.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Thanks for sharing.
Um,
Coral, you've just joined us. Would you like to go introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Coral. I'm just a professional developer. I do mostly stuff in PHP, Erlang, and I spend most of my day just in Emacs, taking notes, keeping track of stuff, managing Git repositories, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. Well, one of the things that still drives me a little crazy when it comes to web languages that sometimes you end up giving into the temptation to mix in your HTML and other things. This is more of a problem for me when I'm working with JavaScript, and probably with PHP. If you're very disciplined, you can keep them apart much better. It's really just having that, having like web mode will do different modes decently, but there's still little quibbles about it. So fun times. Does anyone have any questions, or shall we pull out other interesting things from our config to share with people?
yeah.
I got one, I think. Let me see if I can remember where I put it. Hang on a second. Okay. Speaking of annoying web things. So I recently Yeah, okay. So I recently, well, by recently I mean today, had to deal with a lot of code that actually, well, first it started off with like style, blah, 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 and then you had your actual, like, hello world in here because someone had copied and pasted code, I think, from Microsoft Word or some other thing that resulted in lots of style attributes that didn't actually make sense. Like it was all setting font size, font names and sizes and whatever. So after I managed to get rid of all those annoying style attributes using a lot of replace strings, my job then was getting rid of all these span tags so that at least I could read the HTML and figure out what was going on. So I wrote myself this little function that just unwraps these tags. And you can't just do a search and replace for span and then anything goes in between and span because it'll mismatch, right? It'll match the first span with a first end of span, and then bad things will happen. Maybe if it's like depending on how your HTML is. So in this case, instead, this regular expression searches for a span, and then anything inside it that doesn't have an HTML tag, and then the ending span tag, and it replaces it with whatever's in the parenthesized expression. So it keeps on doing this until it has unwrapped all the spans. So no matter, like I had to deal with sometimes they're like 5 spans thick, and this one got rid of all of them. And then of course, since it's now in my config and I really should be doing more testing, I wrote a very quick ERT test for it. And all it does really, so I have this like function that says clean up the spans in the string, and all that does is it creates a temporary buffer, puts in the thing, uses my function to clean up the spans, and then gives me the buffer string back. But what that does is it allows me then to use ERT very easily to say, okay, this span hello world, span should return hello world. And likewise, whatever I've set up here, like if it's around a link, I know I can deal with that easily. But since other tags were much less common in the text that I was working with, I could just leave that alone and handle that myself. So now that I specify these ERTs, I can just run ERT by itself or specify the cleanup spans and strings, and it will tell me that I have passed the test. And of course, if I changed it so that, for example, this should now fail because I'm adding some text in there that this does the wrong thing, it will tell me then that my test has failed, and then I could have gone and debugged that. So that was a like tiny Emacs Lisp saving my sanity sort of thing that I wrote today.
Cool.
Yeah. Are there other little conveniences that you write for yourself when you're programming or using Emacs, and you're finding that this one thing that you do again and again is driving you crazy?
Yeah.
Do
I have
share.
some. I have something. I probably need to. So basically, I use Jabber from Emacs,
Yeah.
and I usually have a bunch of things which I want, like maybe an interesting link which I came across or something which I want to share with a bunch of people. Like I usually, if I come across something related to Emacs, I have like 2 or 3 friends who use Emacs, so I keep sending it to them. So the usual workflow is like go and type their name, send the first person the link, and then do it over and over for all the people I want to send it to. So I basically hacked it to add kind of tags for people based on the topic. Like Emacs, like people who are interested in Emacs will have an Emacs tag, and now
Uh-huh.
I can basically send a group chat message.
So Jabber spamming, but for good.
Exactly. But
Awesome.
Gmail has like basically Google Hangout. I use Google Hangouts or Google Gmail chat, but they have rate limits. So I had to do some crazy stuff to uh, get over the rate limits. But yeah, it works.
Cool. That the tags that you have on people, is that in the Jabber client, or are you using something else like or
No,
contacts or
yeah, odd
BBDB?
contacts.
Or contacts. There's something that I need to use more, kind of just as a way to keep track of people and their email addresses and notes and tag them by some,
Mm. Yeah,
keywords.
I find it kind like update like adding a new tag is kind of hard. So I'm just getting by with whatever I had added when I was really excited about having this. I find myself not adding new tags very often because it's kind of hard to find all the people, and I need to like improve that part of the workflow, I guess.
Cool.
Uh, mm, so I don't know if there's anything much to show here, but let me see. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So like it's split up into a bunch of different functions. So I'm not sure like what I can show here.
Oh, so I see you've got some convenience functions for filtering your org contacts by
Yeah.
various criteria like domain or tag or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And then you have the functions for actually sending things through Jabber.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah. So I basically have like the interface is basically the same as so if I hit Control X J J, it shows
Yeah.
you a list of my contacts, but I can also type a tag name,
Yeah.
so it shows me tags. Uh, and like once I select the tag, I have like a couple of different accounts, so I can just select one of the accounts, and then it shows a list of uh,
Ah,
email IDs, and I can basically type whatever, like share a URL here.
neat.
Yeah. So yeah, and the code is not really showable, I guess.
That's okay. It's long,
Yeah,
but I
like I
think you share your config on GitHub, right?
yeah,
So people can go into that if you want more detail. I guess the next step for this would be to write something that listens to Jabber, and then you can tell people, hey, if you want to add a tag to your contacts, so if you want to hear about Emacs related news, send me this keyword, and I will, Emacs will update it for you.
Yeah, I remember you had a similar post where you sent emails to people asking their contact information or birthday or something of that sort.
Well, especially since because you have that information in org, you can then you can do a mail merge with a little bit of Emacs list,
Yeah,
or even like parse out stuff from the email they sent you, and then put
yeah,
that into their contacts information.
yeah, yeah. You had a post long time back which had something similar, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah, so the only tricky part, I mean, annoying part here was basically I had to like run a timer because I cannot ping more than 10 people. Like once you start sending links to a bunch of people, Gmail thinks it's spam. So I had, you can only send 10 links in a gap of 2 minutes. So send 10 links, wait for 2 minutes, and send uh, 10 more. That's how I do.
Huh. Maybe I should try this for Google Hangout, Emacs Hangout notifications. Cool. Thanks for sharing.
No problem.
So what do folks want to talk about now?
So so there's always been a block between using org mode completely because I used to rely Evernote a lot because it was easy to so if I'm like reading a book and taking notes, so I could just drag drop images and things directly into it and collect all my notes and later on reformat it. So I can do stuff in org, but I still didn't get the same flexibility. And then I found this package called org download. So basically, what it allows you to do is drag and drop images. I'll probably post the link in the chat. So you
Yeah.
can drag and drop any image where you find online directly onto your org buffer, and it will automatically taken as an attachment. So it's almost like so you can like create notes along with adding images. So you don't need to go and manually type in file. It auto figures. So if it's a URL, so it can download and set it as an attachment. If it's a local file, it will take it as a local file. So, so that has been a very good way
Ah,
for me to start taking notes.
neat. Org protocol is another thing I've often heard mentioned along those lines as well, in terms of quickly getting information from other applications into org. So it's great to see that there are all these packages out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, dragging and dropping. It looks like I guess this is more of a GNOME thing. Does anyone know if org download works with other GUIs?
Yeah. So I
We'll
guess
find out.
it just has like a screenshot method, and the default is GNOME, I guess. Or at least that's what I gather from the README.
Yeah. Yeah, it could work, I guess. Awesome. Huh. The other thing that I've been doing with Evernote is because I'm in Windows, I can use the N script command line executable to just dump notes that match a certain criteria, and it dumps it out in XML, which I can then convert into something that looks kind of like org using, I think, Pandoc it was, or something of the sort. Anyway, so there are ways to get information out of Evernote again and into a form that you can use with org. But getting it into org directly is even better. So you've switched over to using org for most of your note taking now, I guess.
Yeah.
For books, you mentioned, like, how are you organizing those notes? Like, do you use properties for titles or tags or subjects or things like that?
So I just So what I do is, so if I'm reading some book on my Kindle, so
Yeah.
once I'm done with the book, I would highlight all the points which I want to be, which I want to go in my, which needs to go in my notebook. And then once I'm done, I go to the Kindle's interface and um, get all the highlights out, and then I create a note based on the chapters. I just organize them based on
Mm.
chapters.
Yeah. I've also tried in the past using the org scheduling function to remind me to review or reread my notes after a while. So that's another thing, I guess, that maybe you've already done or you might consider.
Uh,
That's
so Kiran, how do you import your clippings from Kindle?
how do I?
Import your Kindle clippings, like you manually import them, or like
Yeah, I have to do that manually for now.
okay. So I found a package which I don't use much these days. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Clip to Art, and I made a few bug fixes on it. Basically, it can look at your clippings file and automatically import them into an org format. Like
Ooh.
basically just read them and format it into a temporary org buffer as headlines, which you can then move around and do whatever you want with those. I can paste the link in the
What's the name
chat.
of it? What's the name of
I'm pasting the link in the chat. It's called org clip to org.
it? Excellent.
That's awesome.
Thanks for the link.
No problem.
Well, I have a sort of a workflow question, right? I'm starting to put a bunch of projects into, org mode, and they tend to get messy, and at some point the doors get messed up. And I think what may have happened earlier in this demo when I was doing a demo, right? You just get weird formatting things. Do people have any idea about how to, I mean, say cycle things out, or so that they don't just grow infinitely, and then an org syntax here, grows and I don't know. You see the problem. If my project files, project tracking files become large forever, and then I get some weird drawer formatting thing that causes formatting errors. I'm just looking for a workflow to cycle through these things.
Have have you considered using the $sign to archive subtrees? It creates a file that's named like your org file, but with underscore archive at the end, and it moves that subtree there.
Aha! I was not aware of that. Thank you very much.
There's actually like what I often end up doing is I sort my to-dos by order, and then it's like reasonably okay with the fact that I have like done tasks from a year ago, which presumably I will probably not need to refer to. Then I can't remember whether this is built in or whether I have some code to just archive those done tasks, all of the ones that are in the region I select, and that clears it out. I made the mistake of doing this in my Emacs config before, and then I forgot that actually some of those done tasks are because I have config in them. So don't do that there, but do that in your other project files.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
And then whatchamacallit, there are options there, so you can tell it, I think, to kind of, if you want to preserve some memory of where it was in your context, or if you just want it to move the subtree over.
Yeah,
All sorts of things.
as with my Git files, right? My org files are becoming legion, and
Yeah.
I need to deal with that.
But if it's in Git, I mean, you could just delete it, I guess, and
Yeah,
then search your history.
no, never delete those files.
Yeah. Cool. So there's, I guess there are two things there. Using the org sort, I think is what it is, or org sort entries, to periodically, move all the done stuff out to where you don't need to look at them as often. And there's also just archiving subtrees as you decide this is stuff that's done, and you don't have to refer to it right away.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Does anyone do anything else differently? I have to confess, my org file gets pretty big, and really, it slows it down a little bit when parsing. So what I find is that keeping everything on set to show all instead of start up with it folded, having it show all makes it seem a lot more responsive. So
Yeah. I think load time improves a lot for bigger files when you have show all.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've been using visible mode a little bit lately. Are people aware of that? So, like there's all these folding and hiding and things, but sometimes you just want to see what's in the file. So if you go to visible mode, like it's all there.
Hmm.
Yeah. There is no folding. There is no hiding. Visible mode just makes it all show.
I usually tend to use that when I'm editing links, URLs, which I have in my org files, because there's sometimes I just want to change the URL or the text, and it doesn't work the right way, I guess. But other
Hmm.
than that, I don't find the use. Like when do you generally switch to visible mode?
I use Control C, Control L to edit links most of the time, but I've been switching to fundamental mode if I kind of want to do some search and replace and I want to make sure that it's right before I save it or switch back to org mode. So it sounds like
Okay.
visible mode would be a good fit for that.
Yeah, and the other thing is when you have a table and you've narrowed the table, right, an org table,
Yeah.
right, and you can do what is it, Control C apostrophe and edit the thing in a buffer, but yeah, that's not so nice.
Yeah, it's cell by cell, so it makes sense then. Sometimes you just want everything
Yeah,
for a moment.
yeah, I've just found that useful lately.
Yeah.
So I've, after a lot of trial and error, I finally migrated from autocomplete to company mode, and it's working out pretty well. So I'm glad that I went through the pain.
Yeah, people often ask like, which one is better, and I guess the answer is whichever one you can get working and configure for what you want to do. Did you have any lessons learned you can share from your recent experience dealing with all that pain?
Uh, the main lesson would be to just persist through it.
What were the reasons you shifted?
Um, it, uh, I'm not, come to think of it, I'm not really sure what triggered me to start looking into company mode, but I think it was just, uh, I think it's better support with elpie, I guess, because elpie works really well with company mode. So I guess I just wanted to try it out, and I just ended up migrating the whole thing altogether. So, but now I use global, so it's company mode everywhere in all my modes. So it's working out well.
That's good to hear. There was a lot of discussion about IDE features related, I guess, to the Emacs devel thread on trying to find a new maintainer. So who knows, maybe, once they sort out the maintaining part of Emacs, we might see more IDE type things coming down the pipeline. We'll see. So completion is definitely one of those things that people always look for.
So I just sort of read the thread, just glanced through it, and I guess the main problem is like several people pointed, it's like they don't find volunteers who are interested enough to spend the time to build the tools required for various, say Java or for C or C++. So I guess the problem is with having volunteers to work out.
Yeah. Yeah, so we tend to scratch our own itches, and then once that's sort of working, we're like, okay, move on to actually doing things. But
If you
it's
haven't ever look at the maintainers file that comes with Emacs, it talks about the people who are enthusiastic, the people who are doing it because nobody else will do it, and then there's the things that have been dropped on the floor, right? That's sort of how they categorize the maintainers.
Yeah. But hey, all these volunteers are absolutely wonderful, and thank you so much to all of them for making this work. What else have people been reading about or playing around with lately?
I started playing around with the LFeed. Uh, it is a feed reader inside Emacs.
Oh,
Yeah.
what do
I
you
just
like
started
about it?
using.
Okay.
So I just started using it about a week ago. So yeah, I'm not really sure if I like it or not. But yeah, it's pretty fast to basically switch. I mean, like it has an interface which is similar to not much or new, like any of the mail clients. So you have like key bindings to switch between entries, and you have nice search based on tags. So I'm still exploring, but yeah.
So I
It
can
seems
see.
to
Okay.
yeah, it seems to render HTML posts pretty well. So that's been a good thing.
Wow. How's it doing that? Using U or W3 or something?
Yeah, SHR.
Hmm. I was just thinking, if you got your feed reading inside Emacs, then that little bit of code you do to broadcast interesting links or messages through Jabber, will be like one keystroke away, and then you might as
Exactly.
well get it to post to Twitter and other places at the same time. It's there.
Yeah. So I'm actually considering basically integrating stuff with my pinboard, like bookmarking app.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't really explored, like I haven't written any code, but basically I want it integrated with pinboard so that like I can bookmark stuff for the future and also add tags as I'm reading stuff. I'll probably work on that sometime.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what I used to do for that was not really bookmarking. So if I really like an article, I would save it to Pocket, and then I would star it in Pocket. So I have a sort of a Zapier script that whenever an article gets favorited, I just flick the link and the title and I add it to my Evernote note. So I guess I just need to do some modifications to make it work with org. So if I can do that, it would be a good
Yeah,
way
for
to.
sure.
So even LFeed has single key bindings. So probably you can just even have say a character which maps it to it. Say like you type P and you're inside the article and you type B, it opens the article in the browser. So you can do P and save it to Pocket, or you can actually extend it to do more stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it's quite extensible. Yeah.
Yeah. I have something. So I don't use Zapier script. I use if this then that. So my workflow is basically that Feedly takes the saved items and it puts it into Digo, I think, and then Digo saves it in like the if this and that takes that stuff from Digo and then puts it into Evernote. And so I have this thing in my config, which I haven't been using because haven't been reading and saving things lately. Where it takes this Evernote extract, so it uses nscript to export the notes that match a certain tag, and it then just pulls the links using the href out of this XML file, and using this little bit of code from Kentonata to resolve however many redirects there are, because sometimes they rewrite links. Anyway, so that's what it does. It pulls the information out of the Evernote thing so that I can put it into my org as a list. Things you can do, right? To stitch together all these different services. But probably LFeed, like the main reason I still use Feedly is because I do my most of my feed reading on my phone. But
Yeah.
in Emacs sounds like it would be a lot of fun.
here's another workflow question, right? So if I'm at my keyboard and I'm doing the agenda time logging stuff, it's all happening. But if I'm away, it's not, right? How do you manage the logging time when you're not, sitting at the terminal all day?
Are you trying to track the time in like?
Just track time in folders or in the doors.
You can tell it to resume a clock if you're closing and starting up Emacs again.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
It's just a workflow question. It's not really an Emacs question. It's called a workflow
Oh,
question.
okay. All right. I actually track my time using a different tool, and then I use org mode for more of the detailed how much time did this particular task take me. But I've heard of people using either manual tracking, and then they have some Emacs lists to just tie it all together when they're doing the reporting, or they just say, okay, everything outside the computer stuff is just under some general task. So it depends, I guess, on the granularity of the time records you want off your computer.
Sure.
I actually really like having kind of those activity level records, but you're right, updating Emacs is a little harder when you're not there. So instead, what I do is I have that web-based system for me to track my time, and then I just have some Emacs Lisp code to pull out the JSON data from this web service, and then do my reports and org blog posts and other things like that with it.
All right. Here's another question. So I've taken lately to building from source and pulling the latest org mode, almost weekly. Do other people do that, or do they stay stable?
Hmm.
I mean, how much do you feel the need to update from source, versus just running a standard version of Emacs or whatever?
I should at some point, but it's still harder for me to do it on my system. Um, I
Oh, Windows, right?
Yeah. Uh, is anyone else here brave enough to try that out on a regular basis?
Nope.
I guess we're pretty okay with the stable things. Your blog post on this looks pretty cool though, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it shapes up.
I mean, I can run through that right now. I mean, I can show you. I've got the
Sure.
yeah. I'll share out again, I guess. Um, let's see here if I've got the right things. From source. Let's see if I have the right thing. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. Um, let's do this if I can find it. Sharing. See. Was natural source. Oh, hang on. Just this way. Yeah, give me a minute to find it. Give me a minute to get to bring everything up.
That's cool.
Yeah. Am I sharing or not at this point?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
I also have your blog post open here, so I could. Sorry, your org file actually is what I have.
Oh, okay. Yeah. From source. Yeah. Action source. Oh, yeah, there's that. Let me just go to the. Yeah, that'll work actually. That'll work. Okay, we can just do it that way. Let me get back to what I think I should
Would you like
share.
me to share it?
I'm just about done.
Okay.
Sharing. Should be. Am I live or no? Well, why don't you go ahead and do a session?
Okay, sure. In a second. Sharing that screen. Yes, you might want the raw file.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah, basically what I did is I pulled down. Zali did a thing on his blog or whatever about how to build Emacs from source, and basically what I did was pull that down and put it into org file. So you go down. I will warn you that if you do this, it takes a long time. A couple of the steps in building Emacs take a long time, and org mode doing this org table thing may not be quite the right thing to do. But it was an interesting exercise, and it showed how to pull things down.
Yeah, I can see how this this is going to go through a lot of downloading and building.
Yeah, yeah, it does the job, but particularly the build step. Right, the build step takes maybe 30 minutes, and it's not very satisfying as an interactive thing. But yeah, so if you want, I mean, the caveat is, the reason I do this is, I just get the latest stuff, and then I'm not worrying about whether there's some bug that's been fixed. Right,
Yeah.
same thing with org mode. I just run the latest stuff, and then I don't worry about what's been fixed. But
I can imagine that
yeah.
if you had different options for configure, for example, then maybe pulling that in from a table or with some help text or whatever beside it, or whatever reminders you would set for yourself or for other people, explanations. That might be an interesting approach for using Babel as part of a build script.
Yeah.
Because I always had, like, if I have to use if I actually have to set the options for a configure, I always end up looking them up.
Yep.
Neat.
Yep. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
And rinse and repeat for pulling org down.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you would definitely be building org in a separate Emacs to avoid the old bytecode lying around.
Yeah. You have to do cleanup. There is one thing I haven't figured out, and that is when you build org and install it, the tech info files seem to not. I seem to have trouble getting the tech info files for the built version to show up. And I think there's a shell variable, or there's a environment variable that's supposed to get that, but it doesn't seem to do it. So I don't know if anybody else is crazy enough to have built org from source and gotten tech info to work, but I haven't.
Like an info.dir install directory or something like that.
Yeah. And it may just be the case that they're not updating the version number, and then that's what I'm going off of. But yeah.
I guess you could test that with make install info.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a try.
Neat. Oh, I was going to ask Dave to introduce himself, but then he left. So, oh no, he's here. He's here. Dave, would you like to go introduce yourself? You're still on mute, so I'm not sure whether you want to unmute and introduce yourself, but oh, there you go.
Yeah, well, let's see if this works. I spent about an hour trying to get this to work. So, yeah, I've been an Emacs user, oh boy, probably most of my career, which is about 30 years, back on a VAX 11780 or something like that, back in 84, 85, 86. But more recently, the past, say, 10, 15 years, doing Unix development. at IBM and Sun. So big org mode user also. And about the question of building org mode from source, I did that recently. I was trying to track down a bug when I tried to run org plot / GNU plot on a clock table. It just failed big time with some symbol that wasn't there. So I used get bisect and figured it out. But yeah, I had to do that, and I think I had to install TechInfo to make that work.
If you have any memory of how you did that, let me know, because I've never gotten that to work quite right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would think I was using both Red Hat Linux and Fedora, and yeah, I think I had to go find the TechInfo package, whatever it was. But it took me a while to figure out because it wasn't obvious for some reason. Sometimes it's MakeInfo, sometimes it's TechInfo, depending on how they package it.
Got it.
I'm surprised that the build dep didn't pick it up, but maybe it's because your build dep lines here are Emacs 23. I don't know if Emacs Snapshot might be a slightly fresher package, but Emacs 23 should have
I was
pulled
just taking that straight out of Saw's thing, which I think I took about 1.5 years or 2 ago, and he hasn't updated his, so I haven't updated mine.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So what do you like to talk about or share?
Well, I don't have anything else right now, but
That's
just
cool.
thought I'd hang out, listen to the conversation mostly.
Yeah.
Be a lurker.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's it's really it's just a casual way to bump into other people who are actually using this too. Because like me, I did actually manage to physically meet up with another Emacs geek in the 3 Emacs geeks actually, although they're all related to each other, so I don't know whether that counts as much. Anyway, in Toronto, so that happened this past month. It wasn't a formal Emacs meetup or anything of the sort. But these Emacs Hangouts are kind of like
working. One's in California and one left, and that's just the way it is.
there are like places where people are more organized and they actually get Emacs meetups going. But I am not a very organizing person at the present. Let's see. But at least there was an Emacs conference, so that was nice to see. Nice to watch the videos from that.
Yep. Thank you for putting this all together.
It'd be nice to see that become a regular thing. So I think people are making noises about kind of now that they've figured out the organizational and technical stuff, it'd be nice to have that again next year.
Maybe a little smoother launch on the online version.
I was panicking because I couldn't hear from I wasn't hearing anything from the on-site organizers. So we're like, all right, emergency Emacs Hangout session. But fortunately, the live stream pulled through. It's cool. Yeah. So I guess for my part, what I'm looking forward to digging into over the next month or so, presumably there'll be another Emacs Hangout roughly a month from now, if I manage to remember to set one up, or if other people want to set one up, that works out too. Is I've been like. I notice I tend to get very satisfied with my Emacs configuration for a bit. You're like, okay, you've tweaked it, you've done enough yak shaving, fiddled around with your config or whatever, and now there's all these other things that I'm curious about or I want to learn. Like, for example, I'm doing more data visualization and data analysis lately. But I think just sitting down and doing what some of the other bloggers in the Emacs community do, where they just try to find one small change to go and make about their to improve their workflow, that'll probably do wonders for my understanding of Emacs. So I hope to get back into writing about Emacs more often. And there's always so much stuff to customize anyway. Are there particular things that you're looking forward to learning or exploring over the next month or so?
I'm actively.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
No, you continue, George.
I was just going to say I've also been diving into the agenda stuff and the time tracking stuff, which I haven't done before. It's insane and does its job very, very well.
Absolutely. And not only can you use it to pull together agendas from different files, but when you customize your custom commands, you can change your set of agenda files, and you can put in all of your pre-built queries in there too. So it is super handy.
Yeah, I mean, nothing earth-shaking other than it's there, and it's amazing if you need to plan your day or track what you're doing. It works.
One of the things that I find helpful for when I haven't been doing what I'm supposed to be doing, there's a block scatter. You can mark a region, and you can tell it to procrastinate those tasks at random over the next couple of days. So you don't end up with like you saying, okay, I'm going to do everything next week, and then next week you have like 20 different tasks, right? This one at least randomizes it a bit, so it spreads it out. It's under the bulk command somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah, tell that to your project manager.
Yeah, I guess that wouldn't really fly, eh? But if you, so one of the things I end up doing with agenda mode is because I clock time, and also I try to keep my tasks tiny enough so that I can check them off as I complete them, and then I can use the log mode to say look, I did actually do things today. So that's been very helpful looking back. You can see the day hasn't been a complete waste of time. Yeah. Org mode.
So one thing I think I would like to explore more would be to find more places I can use key cards.
Oh yeah.
So I have currently have a few key cards for say like quickly going into my config, or to do an AV go to care, something like that. So
Yeah.
it has helped a lot in my workflow. So I'm looking to see where further places where I can apply cards.
Yeah. Undoing might be a quick way to undo is sometimes helpful. And I think I actually find that to UU as a key cord. And then of course there's setting up Hydras in case you're once you start running out of key cords, or in case you want easily repeatable commands, then Hydras are a natural thing to stick onto the end of your key cord config. But yeah.
Oh, Satch, I just wanted to say thank you. The WordPress post subtree thing that we talked about before the last chat or two. It also just works just fine for posting to WordPress. So very nice.
That's good to hear. It's very, very helpful, because then you can just, you can post, and I think it even updates things properly, although sometimes I tend to not trust that enough. So what I do instead is I have a function that copies region as HTML in case I just want to stick a table into my new blog post. But it's super useful for just posting things quickly.
Yeah. So that's very, very useful.
Oh, where is that thing? I'm trying to remember where that the thing for procrastinating stuff is.
But you can't find it right now.
Of course, right? Because people are looking and stressed out, can't remember a thing. But I'll get there someday. Actually, if I just open my agenda, I'll probably be able to use muscle memory. Mark some tasks. Okay, B. What is that? I don't know. B. Oh yes. Okay. So you can mark tasks in your agenda, in your org agenda. You can mark tasks with M, and then press I think capital B to do bulk actions. So for example, you can bulk archive. You can change it to do, etc., etc. But the thing that you're looking for is S, which is scatter, which is, hang on a second, let's go find out what that thing is actually called. The function is scatter, scatter, scatter. The fun. It's actually it's hidden in the it's hard coded into the bulk action def one instead of being its own function, which is amusing. But anyway, so the org agenda bulk action is called by pressing, first you mark tasks with M, and then you press Shift B, or from the menu bar it's agenda act on all marked. And capital S is the scatter for things, scatter to the next 7 days or whatever. That's why I was wondering I couldn't find the function name for it, because usually people like writing these small functions that they can then call just by themselves. But in this case, it's actually just one long function that prompts you for a character and does things. Quite possibly, I have a really old version of org that is much nicer in the new version.
Well, I would say you could use my build thing, but you're on Windows. So
I know. I did actually manage to build org from source-ish before, but I think I tend to use the package system just because that way my lovely use package, all those macros and things like that, just, everything is nice and tidy and it installs things.
I thought you said at one point you were running in VMs, right? Running Linux VM.
Yes. I do occasionally run a Linux VM. I think that was the one time, actually that's probably the time that I did actually get org and Emacs running from source, because it's just so much of a hassle in certain other operating systems. But having Linux in a VM is super, super helpful. I'm still stuck on Windows though because I like the drawing program that I use. So, oh yes, speaking of graphics in Emacs, right? We were chatting about using org attachments. The other thing I do is I upload my little index card things to Flickr, but then I use a Python script that somebody else wrote to download the information from Flickr, and then I get that back into my org files, so then I have links to the Flickr stuff, which is helpful. So, graphics. It actually doesn't embed them, which I probably should look into at some point, but I generally don't need to. I just need the title, and then I can go and open it up. Okay, so now that Dave has this wonderful procrastination tool, actually, most of the time I just schedule things out for like 2 weeks plus 2W, right? It's very easy to write, but sometimes a little bit of randomness can be fun. Coolio. Okay, so do we want to wrap up at this point? Or does anyone else have any questions or comments or suggestions before we do this wrapping up thing and people can get on with the rest of their lives, including hacking Emacs?
Going once.
Awesome. All right. In that case, we will wrap up here. There will probably be another one sometime around next month, in which case you'll find out about it on the Emacs Conferences and Hangouts Google Plus page, plus wherever else you heard about this in the first place. Then thanks again for being part of this totally informal, as you can see, rather unscripted, except for wonderfully organized people who actually come prepared with blog posts. Or outlines, but that's of course to be expected. And really, it's just a way to look over other people's shoulders as we're learning about interesting Emacs things and trying things out ourselves. So I hope to see you next month-ish. If you've got interesting things to share, feel free to come and share them. If you've got questions, that works out wonderfully too. That's about all the plugging, I guess.
I want to say thank you for putting this together. This and all the other ones. It's very informative. So thank you.
It's fun, and then everyone else gets to listen and lurk, and then watch the replays afterwards, which is part of the evil plan to get more things recorded and shared in forums that other people can listen to and so forth. So all of this is goodness. And I will end the broadcast here. Thanks again for participating, and for everyone who's listening or listening to the recording afterwards. Thanks for being part of the community.